Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Thursday edition, our boxing show. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and on Max Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. Please like, follow, and share our Facebook pages. Subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Our website is nessp.info for all the information on all the great NESSP shows, our guests, sports information, stores, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, together bringing you national sports with special focus on the Northeast professional sports team from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac. Lot went on in sports yesterday. It was a busy evening.
Yes, it was, but Jack, today is our boxing show, but we will get some of them up out of the way first. You're looking at the NHL expansion draft was a big story. The expansion of the Seattle Krakens, the new team. Carter B had a great show on last night on 2-0 on his show as they went live to check out the draft, give their reactions and stuff. And I guess some of the bigger names that were drafted that were out there was Mark Giordano, the 35-year-old, probably going to be the captain of the team. The Islanders lost Jordan Eberle, big name for the Islanders. Brandon Tenev and goalie Chris Dreiger, I think is his name. Very good goalie. So they got a couple good defensemen. They got a pretty well-rounded team from who they drafted, Jack. So we'll see what happens. The draft is still going on today. I guess they get to pick 30 players. So it'll be interesting to see how well Seattle does in their first year coming into the NHL. So
yeah, from what I can gather, Seattle was looking for chemistry. There were some really high-profile players they didn't take. It reminded me of what Herb Brooks did when he picked the 1980 Olympic team. He said, I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right players, the right mixture, the right combination. And that's what it seemed Seattle was doing yesterday in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, and as I said, folks, if you didn't see the 2-0 hockey show with Carter B, you can check it on Northeast Streaming Sports. Check out the tape itself, the video itself. So if you do love hockey and you are interested in what happened, go ahead and check it out. Good morning to David Guyette, and good morning also to Mark Taylor. Thanks for joining us. Carlos just popped in. Thanks, Carlos, for coming in as you always do. And the other, I'll cover real quick, the local baseball, Jack. We're just going to talk about the teams from the Northeast. The Mets blasted the Reds 7-0. Dominic Smith goes off for 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs scored. Marcus Stroman with a big game pitching went 8 innings, Jack. And, he got only a 1 hit off of him and 7 strikeouts. So good game by him.
Yeah, good with the Mets. The Mets are keeping the rest of the NL East at arm's distance. And the NL East, they just can't get out of the gate. I mean, everyone else is under 500 except for the Mets. But the Mets haven't broken things open. And you kind of wonder the Mets going to go on a surge. Yes, maybe yesterday marked the beginning of it. Maybe when Jacob deGrom gets back, we'll see. But the Mets right now have control of the NL East, but they haven't been playing so great themselves. But yesterday was one of those games where they put it all together.
Definitely. Stroman is still a good pitcher, Jack, and they do have good offense over there.
Well, Stroman's going to be a free agent next year, at the end of this season. Yeah. So that's another thing the Mets are going to have to determine whether they're going to want to resign him or not. Stroman took the qualifying offer this year, Mac, so he could prove himself during this season that he's a quality starting pitcher, so he could then enter the free agent market in the offseason. And right now, the plan is working for Stroman. He's increased his value.
I agree. I definitely agree. The Red Sox score 7 runs, beating Tampa Bay 7-4. Center field, Enrique Hernandez 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs, 1 run scored. Pitcher Garrett Richards goes 5 2/3 innings, giving up 4 hits and 4 runs with 5 strikeouts. Red Sox still holding on to that first place spot, Jack.
We're waiting for the Red Sox to hit a little bit of a slump. They haven't hit a slump all season. You know, baseball's funny. This is largely forgotten. The Red Sox first 3 games of the season, they were swept by the Baltimore Orioles. Yes. The Baltimore Orioles, the worst team in the American League this year, swept them 3 in a row. And you didn't think the Red Sox, at least I didn't, most people didn't think, you had some hope for them, Mac. Didn't think they were going to be much of a team this year. And when you get swept by Baltimore your first 3 games, you're immediately thinking this is going to be a long season. And look at the reversal. The Orioles have been terrible, and the Red Sox have been arguably the biggest surprise in the American League.
I agree with that, Jack. In Philadelphia, our friend Pags, the Philly sports guy, was live in attendance there as the Phillies took on the Yanks. Phillies jumped out to a quick lead. Yankees came back. Second baseman Robin Odor goes 1 for 5 with 2 RBIs. Pitcher Asher Wojciechowski, Jack, never heard of the guy. He pitched for 3 hits, gave up 2 runs, and then the final 4 innings, Jack, 6 relief pitchers out of the bullpen. Britton gave up 2 runs and 1/3 of an inning, Jack. So I hope he's going to be pitching better.
He couldn't get the ball over the plate. It was amazing, like 3 walks in a row. I got to tell you an amazing stat, Mac, and you're going to be flabbergasted by this, the way it slipped under the radar. No one talks about it. If the season ended this moment, the Yankees would be in the playoffs. I know it's crazy. They're 1 percentage point ahead of Seattle for that 3rd and final playoff position. So as hopeless as it might seem to some Yankee fans, this is a terrible year. There are all these games behind the Red Sox, which they're 7 games behind the Red Sox. The bottom line is the Yankees have a serious chance of making the playoffs and statistically would be there if the season ended today. I'm going to tell you, it was a 4.5-hour game yesterday, Mac, in extra innings. Too long. I was dozing off. You know who woke me up? Chapman, when he came in the 9th inning, because Chapman was so wild at times. I mean, he throws and has Bryce Harper ducking for cover. Then the next batter's ducking for cover, and he's not throwing at anyone. That's the scary part about it, Mac. If at least he's throwing at the batter, they feel, well, he's sending a message. They duck for cover. But when the guy isn't trying to hit anyone and the ball is whizzing by your head, that is scary. But Chapman, when he wasn't decking someone, his velocity was good. On the last pitch of the inning, the scoreless inning he threw 101 miles per hour. And when your arm is that good, there's always hope. So he's kind of gently getting it back together in his last 2 outings, and we'll see from here.
All right, Jack. So that's really I could go a little bit into the Olympics, and I don't know if we'll have enough time. I might do that near the end if we do. But first, let's do what we're here for, Jack. We got a little boxing news. Iceman John Scully is at an amateur boxing tournament. So, of course, my everyday expert, Jack Hirsch, will be giving us the boxing news. That's right. The legendary boxing writer himself going into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. As you heard yesterday, as we had Max Kellerman on, both going into the Boxing Hall of Fame in New York. We're going to get to a little boxing news. So, Jack, fights we haven't reported on, we really haven't reported on because there hasn't been a lot of boxing last week or so. But the upcoming schedule we have on July 23rd on Showtime, we'll have some. But I want to get to something really off the track for a minute, because there's a show box. I don't know if it's a special or it just goes on Showtime, but it's called The New Generation, Jack. It's celebrating its 20th anniversary with some exciting prospects in the super middleweight division. They have Calvin Henderson versus Isaiah Steen in a 10-round clash. Henderson's 14-0 with 10 knockouts. Steen is 15-0 with 12 knockouts. And they have two other fighters, great prospects on the card. Gordon Hall is the executive producer of Showbox, The New Generation, as I said, celebrating 2 decades. And he says to the ethos of what it is, of matching the very best prospects in boxing. So, Jack, we talked a little bit off air about it. I wasn't aware of this. I've never watched this, but I'm definitely going to tune in because I want to see some of the best prospects in boxing coming through the ranks.
Well, the whole idea of Showbox is to exhibit young talent, tomorrow's champions. And it's like, let's say, I don't want to say it's not the major leagues. I was going to say it's the next step before a player gets called up to the big leagues, where you could see some really good talent. But you could see young fighters like a Ricky Hatton, for example, on the way up. You could see someone like him fighting on Showbox. And a lot of good fights on Showbox. They've done a good job exhibiting a lot of young talent that couldn't get exposure elsewhere. They couldn't get exposure on pay-per-view shows. They couldn't get exposure on some of the other networks like ESPN. So Showbox will have special shows with the young fighters on the way up, and you're seeing them develop into champions.
Yeah, listen, I'm all for looking at newer fighters instead of watching Pacquiao or watching the Golden Boy or whatever coming and doing exhibition fights. That may be fun for some people, but you're muted, Jack. But
De La Hoya's making a comeback at age 48. He's fighting an MMA guy, and the California State Athletic Commission is actually going to sanction it as long as Oscar passes the physical.
Yeah, the guy's name that he's fighting he's a former UFC superstar. He's called Vilter Belfort of Rio de Janeiro. So on September 11th, it's supposed to take place at the Staples Center, and it's going to be on Fight TV. Again, I'd rather watch a 15-0 young guy fighting a 16-0 younger guy, trying to make their way through the boxing ranks, if they can, the way it is today, than watching the Golden Boy fight some ex-UFC fighter any day, Jack.
Well, in the past, you'd have a lot of young fighters, even unbeaten records, great prospects squaring off with one another. That is so rare in this day and age. That's why some months back, it was really refreshing for Daniel Dubois to fight Joe Joyce in England, 2 unbeaten heavyweights who were fringe contenders working towards title contention, fighting one another. Okay, you'd think they'd go separate ways, each build towards a title shot, but no, they faced one another head on. And that was so rare in boxing. It took us back to the days when, let's say, Rocky Marciano or Roland Lastarza, 2 young unbeaten fighters, contenders on the way up. And it was really a compelling match that took place. And you don't get enough of that today. It seems like so many fighters or promoters want to keep a guy unbeaten or want to keep a guy safe. Right. Maneuver him, put him in the right spot rather than just have him face anyone to prove he's the best.
Right. And here we go. Tyson fought Jones in exhibition. If you want to call it a fight, you can, Carlos. I don't call that a fight. I called it more of a hugging match than a fight. They were showing a lot of love for each other.
They were somewhat entertaining. Listen, if you take it for what it's worth, Mac, as entertainment, I'm okay with it. I really am. but don't take it as a real fight. But I'll tell you, if you put Tyson with Holyfield and they sanction it as a real fight, it would get a ton of interest, a ton of view buys.
Oh, there ain't no doubt about it. There ain't no doubt about that, Jack. It'd probably do better than some of the heavyweight fights that they would put on. So we have Joe Joyce versus Carlos Takam, Jack. July 24th, Joe Joyce heavyweight, showdown. If he wins, he may be first in line for the WBO mandatory challenger to Joshua Usyk winner. So big fight for Joe
Absolutely,
Joyce.
And Joe Joyce would be worthy. Joe Joyce, with the Olympics coming up, it should be mentioned he was robbed of a gold medal in the Olympics. A lot of people feel in the heavyweight division that they felt he won his fight in the finals against Tony Yoka, didn't get the decision, so be it. But he's unbeaten as a pro. And as mentioned a while ago, that big win stopping Daniel Dubois. Also, Carlos Takam fights actually for Joe DeGuardia Star Boxing, one of those fighters. And he's best known for his fight with Anthony Joshua, in which they stopped it prematurely, I think, in the 10th round. Takam was hanging in there. He was behind on points. He wasn't getting banged around. And to me, listen, I'm 100% for safety, obviously, but I thought that stoppage was truly premature in that fight. Takam wasn't going to come back and win the fight. He was going to lose the decision, but he wasn't taking a beating, and he deserved to have the satisfaction of going the full 12 rounds, and I wasn't too pleased that was taken away from him.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows? Gets to the end of the 15th, like Mike Weaver, and you knock the guy. Who knows?
Well, end of the 12th these days.
End of the 12th, right. Weaver, I think, was 15th.
Listen, an interesting question with Weaver take. That was a 15-round fight, Mac. This is just a theory. Would the fighter behind on points have made his move earlier had that happened? Like, we could talk boxing history. I mentioned Rocky Marciano a little while ago. When he won the world heavyweight title, he knocked out Jersey Joe Walcott in the 13th round. Joe Louis was behind on points defending against Billy Conn, knocked him out in the 13th round. You kind of wonder if they were 12-round fights, would they have still won by knockouts, Marciano Louis? Would they have made the move earlier, or would their opponents have been just a little bit fresher, maybe fought a little bit differently? We'll never know. My theory is a fighter makes his move a little earlier, but you can never tell. Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, Mac, the first fight. Leonard stops Hearns in the 14th round. He comes on late. In the rematch, Leonard came on late, round 12, but Hearns survived it, and it was a draw, and most people felt Hearns won that fight. So you kind of wonder with the distance, the fighters would they have made their move earlier? Would it have really turned out differently? I guess it comes under the category of we'll never know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like the eras in all sports, right, Jack? It changes. The games get more, the rounds get less. It's hard to call because, if the guy's fresh in the 12th round and he's not tired in the 15th, maybe it is a different one. So we talked about the Golden Boy coming back and doing his thing. WBO orders. Now, I didn't know if they could do this. I guess they would strip him if they don't listen. But they ordered Terrence Crawford a Sean Porter match. We're saying that they have 30 days, and the purse bid would be 60% Crawford. So I don't know, Jack. Can the WBO order them? What does that entail?
Usually purse bids. I'm a little surprised at 60%. It's usually 75% for the champion, 25% for the challenger. But the camps are entitled to adjust it depending on how big of an attraction it is. Look, Crawford is considered by some to be the best fighter pound for pound in the world, but every day he's losing that status because of inactivity. He's got to fight someone in a high-profile fight. Sean Porter is an in-between fight. It's not quite that high-profile a fight, but he's a very valid, legitimate battle-tested opponent who's lost close decisions to Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, and Sean. He beat Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, and it's a yardstick, a measurement fight, especially if Errol Spence should beat Manny Pacquiao decisively. People are going to call for a Spence Crawford fight. And Spence had a lot of trouble with Porter, but he won a reasonably close decision. If Terence Crawford could go in and dominate Sean Porter, stop him, win impressively, that at least sends a message that he's the best welterweight in the world, because he could say, look what I did against Porter, look what you did against him. But there's this little intangible there, Mac. They're friends, Crawford and Porter. Porter doesn't care. He wants to fight anyway. He can departmentalize it easy. You wonder, can Crawford do the same? Outwardly, Crawford looks like he doesn't give a darn type individual that he definitely could do it. But sometimes as a matter, Mac, of getting yourself psyched for a fight, getting yourself up for a fight. Listen, if a guy's a friend of yours, you can fight him hard. You could throw powerful punches at him, but in your preparation, you're not quite psyched, to turn in the type of performance you might need to turn in. And I'm just thinking maybe that's the case here with Crawford. But look, the man's got to fight someone. There's also this element, Matt. Crawford hasn't been happy with his promoted Top Rank, okay? And Aaron gave it back to Crawford, saying he loses money when Crawford fights. Crawford's contract with Top Rank reportedly expires in October, and Top Rank has one more fight left with him under that contract. Aaron talked about matching Crawford in Ireland against Josh Taylor, 60,000 people. It would do phenomenal business, which I agree with. And it's a risky fight for Crawford, and Taylor reportedly wants it. Maybe, but that's not a good situation to fight an Irishman in Ireland, with the Irishman being a great fighter himself. So, but Crawford's got to make a move. He just can't. He's not in a position to reject fights.
Yeah, they say the biggest knock against Crawford is he really hasn't fought top-level opposition in a long time. So, I mean, you say he's best pound for pound, or people say that, but how do they really know if he's not fighting top-level fighters, right? So,
and Porter would be a real test. Porter would be a genuine test for him.
Right. So, Jack,
and a bit of a threat, a little more than a test. He would pose a threat as well. I think Crawford would win, but Porter poses a threat. It's not a lock that Crawford beats Porter.
So Jack, in my memories of the Olympics, right, the Summer Olympics, one of my favorite events was, of course, the boxing events when we went up against Cuba and some of the greater fighters, some Russians, fighters that were really, really basically professionals in their countries because they took care of all their bills, where they lived. They were popular. They were treated really well. And we put our amateurs, real amateurs, against these guys. And, of course, we grew up watching, Sugar Ray Leonard climb the ranks, Tate, some of the other boxers, that finished even bronze or silver. We followed these guys as they became pros. And that hasn't happened in a long time, Jack. So I'm going to try and kind of give you 6 boxers, Jack, to watch in this year's Olympics over in Tokyo. And there's female and male boxers. Of course, the female boxing is becoming a lot more prevalent these days. We had a female boxer on last week, Sarah Thomas, who's making her debut. So let's start with the lightweight division, Jack. And this is a female, 25-year-old Rashida Ellis. I said she's 25 years old. She's from Lynn, Mass, right up by me. She got a bronze in the 2019 World Champions, named USA's Boxing 2019 Female Boxer of the Year. Now, I don't know if you follow the women's boxing. I really don't, Jack, to be honest with you. I'm lucky to watch a real boxing fight with the men. But how do you feel? I mean, I don't remember women's boxing ever being in the Olympics. When did this come about, Jack? And do you follow it?
Yeah, listen, I mean, You have to be careful with how you say it exactly. But first, if I favor women's boxing 100%, I favor women's boxing in the Olympics 100%. The road to represent your country in the United States is a bit harder for the men than the women, only because there are more men out there. You have to fight more. There's more competition. There's harder competition because men's boxing has been around forever and women's boxing hasn't been around as long. Eventually, that's going to even out a bit as the years go by. Olympic boxing isn't what it used to be, in part because there's so much more exposure to other sports. Listen, when Olympic men's boxing was really popular with Sugar Ray Leonard, the Spinks brothers that year. Right. And before that, you'd have Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman. It was considered a springboard to great things as a professional. If a guy was an Olympic champion, he would be considered a golden prospect. Everyone would be paying attention to him, as a professional. But then as the years went by, we had basketball, hockey, football. Even though they were around back in the day, we had cable TV, so much more exposure to other things. Part of it, too, from 1988 on, we were more conscious of bad decisions. Roy Jones in the finals of the Olympics, fighting the fighter Park from South Korea, he totally dominated. It is so one-sided, yet the Korean boxer gets the decision. And it was so embarrassing that Jones was voted the Val Baker Cup for the outstanding boxer at the 1988 Olympic Games. Imagine that, Mac. You win a silver medal and you're the outstanding boxer. You don't even get you voted that. That's absurd, okay? And then in 1992, you had Oscar De La Hoya. That's why he got the nickname the Golden Boy, won the gold medal. But from 1992 on, the United States hasn't had a great amount of success in the Olympics. They haven't spotlighted many fighters in particular. As a result, the popularity is down. Even right now, it's like a ho-hum attitude. We don't know what time the Olympic matches are on. And Olympic boxing that used to be the spotlight sport of the Olympics, along with track and field. I think track and field was always number one, the running events. But boxing was usually right behind it. It's not as big now. Basketball is past it. People wondering, when is the USA playing?
Yeah.
Okay. And boxing is just kind of went off on the side, as far as the USA went. It's just not. It's just a shell of what it was, Olympic USA boxing.
If I recall, Jack, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm just doing this off memory. Didn't soon as Sugar Ray Leonard come out of the Olympics, Angelo Dundee picked him right up?
Well, what happened? Sugar Ray Leonard was from Maryland, and Mike Trainer was his attorney. And they reached out to Angelo Dundee to manage and train Leonard because Angelo Dundee meant instant credibility because he was with Ali and all. And they thought he would be the perfect fit. And Mike Trainer, Leonard's attorney at the time, was a novice in boxing. As time went by, Mike Trainer wasn't happy that Angelo Dundee was getting 15%, too big a percentage, because Dundee, as great a trainer as he was, as great a strategist and as smart a manager as he was, he wouldn't come in early in training camp. If Leonard had a fight that was 6 weeks out, Dundee would show up a week before. That's how it went on with Ali as well. But Ali loved Dundee because he was with him virtually from the beginning, and he just liked him a great deal. So, they had Dundee with Leonard. Eventually, there was a falling out because Dundee felt business-wise he was given a raw deal. Leonard handled it poorly. Leonard handled the whole relationship very poorly. And Dundee was once telling me about it when he was alive, off the record. And he asked me not to publish it, but you could tell he wasn't too thrilled with how he was treated.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next fighter that I'm going to talk about, and this is another female fighter, flyweight Virginia Fuchs is 33 years old, number 2 in America, ranking 16th in the world, won the silver medal at the 2019 Pan American Games. 33, Jack. That's kind of old to be boxing in the Olympics.
Well, what I told you about the lack of competition, and even you mentioned some words that are compelling. Pan American Games. Years ago, the Pan Am Games were big, not quite as big as the Olympics. Many years ago, we didn't have world championships. Pan American Games were kind of in a way like the de facto world championships. And now the Pan Am Games are like ho-hum. Oh, I won the Pan Am Games. Oh, well, that's nice. You know, it's like a who cares attitude, it seems, with that. But listen, there are the number of people, boxers from different countries, they have a story. They took up boxing late, especially in women's divisions, and there might not have been a lot of competition, and their way to the Olympics isn't the hardest road, but isn't the hardest road as far as head-to-head competition with someone else. But it is a hard road, you know, to learn to box, to get there, to dedicate yourself with it. And listen, I mean, and I'm going to be honest, there are a number of boxers from different countries. This is going to be their introduction on the world scene. We really don't know much about them outside of their little patch of land where they live. We really don't know much about them, and they're hoping the Olympics get them that exposure. But Mac, there are a lot of gold medalists around from past Olympics. We don't even know who they are, quite honestly. I mean, a handful get the right promoters, the right exposure. But as time goes by, we don't even think of them as gold medalists. Look, Vasily Lomachenko, he won 2 gold medals, arguably the greatest amateur boxer of all time, arguably. But we think of him as a professional, his fights. And we acknowledge what a great amateur he was, but we don't really remember so clearly his Olympic fights.
Yeah, and that's a lot has to do with the popularity of boxing dropping off too, Jack. Middleweight, another female, Jack. So the female team is almost ready to rock. Naomi Graham from North Carolina, ranked number 1 in the Americas, 8th in the world, is the captain. She's the first active military member to compete in for the USA Olympics. She's a staff sergeant. So she's a staff sergeant in the Army. So here we have not only going to represent her country, as a boxer, but also represent her country in the military. They say she's a heck of a fighter, Jack.
You know, you mentioned North Carolina, Mac, and most of the outstanding fighters, men and women, they come from big locations. They come from New York. They come from California. They come from Texas. Once in a while, you get a Terrence Crawford from Omaha, Nebraska, who breaks through. But North Carolina really hasn't turned out elite fighters per se. But we don't know the experience she may have had in the military, maybe boxing on some of the shows over there. And listen, all the women's team are wild cards. Maybe someone is going to emerge that's truly an elite talent. And if that's the case, you're going to see them turning pro and making a real big name for themselves.
So we do have a couple men in there, Jack. We have welterweight Deontay Johnson from Cleveland. He's a Cleveland native.
Yeah.
At 22 years old. Cleveland has had 4 Olympians in a row coming from them that have made the Olympics, Jack. And he's ranked 19th in the world. So Cleveland's putting out some boxers over there.
Hey, Sean Porter is from near Cleveland, from nearby, who we were talking about a little while ago. Yeah, listen, Mac, I'm not going to pretend. I mean, with the pandemic, the activity level has been down. There haven't been fights, the amateur news. It's coming back. It's coming back. It just happens to be coming back, with the Olympics now. Everything seems to be rushed in that sense. But we're going to watch some of this talent to see how it evolves. Listen, I saw Errol Spence fight in the Olympics. He seemed like a good prospect. He didn't medal when he fought there. One of his fights ended in controversy. They kind of did it over again. Floyd Mayweather getting eliminated in the 1996 Olympics, having to settle for a bronze medal. We remember that as well. And I think what we do with these Olympics, I think we focus a little less on these Olympics, who wins the gold medal, as to who is going to could be a great pro going forward. It's like with talent scouts. We're saying, like, who could really go far? Listen, it's not like the days back in 1972 when we had one gold medalist, Sugar Ray Seals. I saw him about 3 years ago at the Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota. He never became a world champion as a professional. He became a ranked contender, about number 8 in the world. Actually fought a draw with Marvin Hagler when Hagler was on his way up. And I remember stopping him. People weren't noticing him that much, but I did. And thanking him for what he did for the country, winning the gold medal, knowing it would mean a lot to him. He takes out the gold medal and he puts it in my hand. He wants me to feel it and touch it for good luck. So that's what, so for some fighters, the gold medal is the absolute ultimate. The absolute ultimate. For others, they already have an eye on the professional ranks. And the Olympics is their springboard for the professional ranks. And then again, you have those fighters who could have maybe made the Olympic team, gone on to Olympic glory. They were great prospects, but they didn't want to wait for the Olympics. They wanted to turn pro in the 4-year interim in between. And also, there's the element of bad judging, Mac. We're going to have some rotten decisions in these Olympics. And some fighters, they just don't want to know from it. They just don't want to wait around for these decisions. I'm going to get on when I can this Irish fighter, Michael Conlan, who fought in New York. In the Olympics, like a couple of Olympics ago, it went viral, it went national, because when this decision went against him, he basically flipped the judges, okay? And everyone got a big kick out of that. And Conlan eventually fought the guy who was given the decision over him and won the gold medal. And Conlan beat him later as a professional. They fought here in New York.
All right. Okay. So 2 more for you, Jack. And I want to do this because I want to drum up a little interest here in the boxing and the Olympics again. Because to me, listen, this may be where you first see a couple of the boxers that may end up as champion one day. So we got O'Shea Jones, women's welterweight. She's the first gold medalist.
I love that name, O'Shea Jones. I don't know why. I like that name. Catchy, charismatic, O'Shea Jones.
So she's the first gold medalist in the Pan American Games. She's coached by her dad and 2 brothers that both have been professional boxers. She's ranked 7th in the world. So it's a family affair there as far as the training goes, Jack, right? 2 ex-professional brothers and her dad doing his thing.
Listen, I always supported when people would talk, really before women's boxing became popular, they'd say father-son teams don't work, how awful it is. That's been proven wrong. But sometimes you do need an outside person who could be very objective, because when it's family, you might become a little too emotionally involved. To be unbiased as to what the fighter needs. I mean, listen, they've taken her to the Olympics this far. It seems to be successful on the surface if she's happy. And we'll see how it plays out. But it's a nice story there with the whole family. But we've heard cases where with families, they split up. They go their different ways. There's arguing. The fighter, whether it's man, woman, they get married and then they don't like the spouse, the family. And now it intersects personally and professionally together. That's a bad recipe, Mac, when you're mixing personal and professional and it's going bad. Because if it's going bad in your personal life with family and then you got to see them in the gym, that's not good. But in her case, it would appear, everything is working out on the surface because she is going to the Olympics, and we'll see.
No doubt, Jack. I imagine that she's in there fighting her brothers, sparring with them. Last one, Jack. Richard Torres, super heavyweight, 22 years old, ranked number 1 in the Americas, 11th in the world. Torres won the, let's see if I'm saying this right, the Boxing 2020 tournament. His father once ranked as a top 5 amateur contender. And, of course, his grandfather fought in the Air Force. So we'll see. Super heavyweight, Jack. We need some more weights out there. You're muted, Jack. You did the opposite.
We've gotten some great fighters coming out of the Olympics. Actually, Muhammad Ali Cassius Clay, he wasn't even a heavyweight. He was a light heavyweight.
Right.
Lloyd Patterson, who also became heavyweight champ, he wasn't a heavyweight in the Olympics. He was a middleweight when he won it in 1952. But we've gotten some quality heavyweights. We got Joe Frazier. He was a bit raw when he was in the Olympics, but he won on drive and determination. We got George Foreman as a heavyweight gold medalist. He hardly had any experience. He was clumsy, cumbersome, but strong as a bull, and he overpowered opponents and won the gold medal in '68. And then we had some decent heavyweights. The 88 Olympics, we had Lennox Lewis beat Riddick Bowe in the finals. They were fairly polished. They were pretty polished amateurs. We had Ray Mercer too. So we have had guys, but for the most part, heavyweight Olympians, for the most part, a little raw. They're really not polished. They're a long way from, being really getting to where they want to go to be an elite professional later on. So in a certain way, we're seeing them in the early stage. I can't say I'm not familiar with the pandemic having taken place, the quality of the fighters, because we haven't had the number of fights they would have leading up to the Olympics. I mean, I'm not talking about just the Olympic trials. I'm talking about these fighters would be boxing often to keep busy. And they haven't had the novelty of these shows to be sharp, to improve. Because when you're an amateur, it's more than just keeping sharp. It's improving the skills. Once an established professional, it's less about improving the skills and more about being sharp and maintaining what you have and making slight improvements, of course.
Definitely. And all those fighters said they were proud to represent the U.S. when they boxed for the Olympics. I imagine, there's something about being number 1 in the country. Boxing is a little different at the time because you were number 1 in the world. But this was their first chance of being number 1 in the world in boxing, even if it was the Olympics. So,
remember ABC used to spotlight these fighters.
Yeah.
We'd know when they would come on, and they would come on prime time. But now in this day and age, we don't know when they're coming on the air. They might be, because there's a difference in time zone between here and Tokyo. Okay, so when Tyson fought Buster Douglas in Tokyo, the fight took place in the morning in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Here it was in the evening. It accommodated American TV. So you might get some of these fighters fighting, Mac, 9:30 in the morning. While we're doing the Mac and Jack show, they might be fighting in the Olympics. And who knows that they're even going to be on the air at that time. And that hurts with the exposure. And before you know it, the Olympics might be over for those who get eliminated immediately, and people aren't even going to know outside of the hardest core boxing fans, amateur boxing fans, that they even fought in the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, they used to cover it from soup to nuts, Jack. We knew who the team was, we knew what divisions they were in, who the welterweight Olympic guy was. We knew all that stuff before the Olympics even happened, and it's a shame that that's not covered like that anymore. I had to go search this out, at a site where I used to be right in front of your face. So, folks, we're going to take our quick break. Be back on the other side. Might go over some of the newer Olympic games before our boxing guests we're going to interview. So Lou, his name is Lou Maeitta from Star Boxing Promotions. He's a light heavyweight. We're going to have him coming up around 9 o'clock. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages. And Jack, we're going to put a lot of boxing in today as we're going to start doing every Thursday. And folks, a nice big guest coming in the 9:30 hour, a famous author, writer, wrote for Ring Magazine, wrote for New York Times. Famous author Thomas Hauser will be joining us at 9:30 hour. So stick with us. The show is going to be great, especially if you love boxing. We'll be right back after this. Oh my God. You know, Jack, sometimes I want to trade this computer in for another one, a new site, but dack with it.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show here on our Thursday show, our boxing special day where we cover as much information. We do interviews. We have everything that has to do with boxing we try to cover on Thursday. And folks, we're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Tomorrow we'll have a couple great guests on. Byron Williams, a former NFL wide receiver, played for about 5 different teams, originally drafted by the Green Bay Packers, most known for being on the Giants. He also played in the World Football League and the Canadian Football League. We'll have Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talk host, with some great coverage of the Patriots, the Yankees, NCAA football, all kinds of good stuff happening tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow, and we'll have to go ahead, Jack.
We had Max Kellerman on yesterday. Mac, how come you're not bragging about that? Max Kellerman, before he did his show with Stephen A. Smith on First Take, he came on. He talked with us a while.
Yeah,
we were
going
to get him off, and he had additional time for us. He was enthusiastic. He had a good time here.
Sure. I mean, listen, Max is a great interview, and he does a great job.
Well, you know what it was, Mac? It was a tune-up for him before he went on First Take. You know, a fighter takes a tune-up before the big fight to get his skills down. You think we were like his sparring partners or what? What do you think?
I don't know. I think that he was refreshed to come on a show that wasn't going to challenge everything he said. I think that's what it was all about. But anyway, Jack, we got a few minutes before our Lou Maeitta comes on, who's a light heavyweight and Star Boxing Promotions, and he's going to be making his professional boxing debut tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Coming up, I think it's September 4th, I think it is, Jack, if I'm correct. Good morning,
September
Tom.
4th at the Paramount Theater in Huntington, Long Island.
Yes. And thanks for joining us, Tom. Love having you aboard. So before our guest comes on, I want to go through maybe one or two new sports that are going to be Olympic Games in Tokyo. And these remind me of my childhood, Jack, for some reason. I don't know. So one of them is a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. Men's and women's, half court. Shots made behind the three-point line count as 2. Within the arc, they're only 1. And how they decide the winner is the first team to make 21, or they have to have the highest score in the first period. Now, I'm not putting this game down because I've seen some great 3-on-3 basketball. But that's what I did on the playground, Jack, right? Yeah, you went 3-on-3 with the guys, and if you scored, you got the ball back. If I knew it was going to be Olympic sport, and I was a little younger, I would have practiced more at the playground to improve my 3-point shot, which I had a pretty good one.
Mac, I was about to say it was nonsense, and then I held myself back because I thought to myself, imagine tennis only had one-on-one, and all of a sudden they decided they were inventing doubles tennis. What would I say? I would say, come on, what are you doing? But doubles tennis is fine. I mean, you play. You know what it is? It's 3-on-3. Why not 2-on-2? Because once you're 3-on-3, you're close to 5-on-5, which is regular basketball. I mean, why not set up a certain game of horse? That might be a little more entertaining, like the home run derby is entertaining. Maybe, people love horse. Listen, when we played basketball in the playground, what was one of the fun things we did if it was just us and one other guy? We play a game of horse maybe, okay, for fun, like to see who could do what. And I haven't watched enough of the 3-on-3. Listen, it's fine. It's good. It's harmless. And some people might find it very entertaining, and maybe it takes off. I don't know. But right now, we have enough Olympic sports, so we're adding another one here.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I've watched some 3-on-3 competition, and they have some teams, Jack, that are really, really good. So that's it for that, because we do have our
I got to have an open mind. Let me just cut in. I really haven't watched enough of it to maybe give a tough opinion the way I seem to just give. So let me backtrack and apologize. I've got to watch it a little more, and evaluate it a little more before I made the statement that I made. So my bad. I apologize right off the bat. Forgive me.
Backstage right now, Jack, he can hear us. We can't hear him, but it's going to change real quick. We have light heavyweight Lou Maeitta. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He'll correct me if I'm not. But He's with Starbucks Promotions, and he's got to be excited because his debut is coming up here real soon, Jack. So let's bring up Lou and see how he's doing. How you doing today, Lou? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Lou. We can't see you.
Oh, I can see him.
Oh,
Lou,
okay.
Lou,
I don't know.
you
Can the viewers? I can't see him on my side. So
really?
can the viewers
Maybe-
see him?
Yes.
Maybe
There
we
he
can-
is. Maybe you
How's it
can
going,
make
guys?
yourself that hard to hit the night of the
Wait.
fight. That would be good. The opponent can't see you the night
I'm
of the
gonna
fight.
leave and
That's a
come
good
back in.
thing.
You guys are breaking up a little bit. Hold on.
Are we? Oh yeah. Try to come back in, Lou. See how it works.
Okay.
Great. So there we go. We got Lou. He's just got little technical problems there, folks. Stick with us. He'll be right back up in a minute.
Lou is a firefighter by day, right?
Yeah, that's what I understand. So we're going to talk
Yeah,
to him
so-
about that too. So hopefully he comes right back in and we can talk to him. Yeah, he's supposedly with New York Fighter. Let's see if it comes in better now. He kind of popped in. Okay, let's bring him up. Let's see. Can you see him, Jack? Can't see him. Lou, we're still having some. Oh, there you go. I see you now. Can you hear me, Lou?
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Lou.
How you doing? I'm glad we got the connection up. You kind of disappeared again, and now you're back. I think this is what you're going to do defensively in your first fight, right? You're going to be there, then you're not going to be there. That will be excellent defense, Lou.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hopefully it's
Good morning. Lou, I guess you're pretty excited about September 4th. It's still a ways off.
sorry. It's going in and out.
Yeah,
Sir.
Lou.
Give him a minute, Jack.
Have you, Lou,
Jack,
can
give
you
him
hear us?
Give him a minute, Jack. It may be delayed.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Lou, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay. You guys are breaking up just a little bit.
Yeah, you too. You too. The connection's a little bad on the link right now. As I was saying, if you're going to move around like that,
I can't hear you.
You can't hear us?
Lou, do you hear me okay?
You're coming in now, Jack.
Okay. Okay, so you make your debut September 4th at the Paramount Theater in Huntington. Have you been to that venue yet?
I'm sorry.
Have you ever?
I'm excited to make the pro debut September 4th. It's a dream come true to fight there. You had the great fighters like Chris Algieri, Cletus Selden, and Joe Smith Jr. fight there. So I'm pretty excited, to get the dream come true, the chance to fight there.
Can you
It's
hear
one
me
of the-
yet? Wait a minute, Jack. Can you hear me yet, Lou?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry.
No, I can't hear me. So, Jack, you're probably going to have to be my interpreter through here.
Okay.
All right?
So, Lou,
So ask
Yeah,
him
go
how
ahead.
he started. Ask him how he started out boxing, Jack.
how did you start boxing in the first place?
So I started when I was a kid, and then I stopped boxing for a little bit. My family is big into Morris Park Boxing Club, where I train out of. So I grew up there, was born and raised in there. So it's in our blood.
So you're a Bronx boy, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are you a Bronx boy? Are you from the Bronx?
Yes, I'm from the Bronx.
Big Yankee fan, I assume, right?
Oh, Met fan.
A what? Met fan?
Yes.
A Met fan from the Bronx? Are you kidding me?
One of a kind.
How does that happen? Oh, wow. I could one of those conversations. Since you were growing up, you mean, right?
Yes.
Oh, I could one of those conversations with your friends there. I mean, you had to learn how to fight. Okay, for that. I mean, it's okay, cool. Why not?
Ask Lou for me, Jack. All right.
I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me? Beautiful.
Yeah.
So Lou, you're fighting as a light heavyweight, and right now the division has become very exciting with Beterbiev, Bivol, of course, Joe Smith. I think it's Barrios who's also will be making a run in there. How do you feel about the division that you're going to be fighting in?
I think it's a tough division. probably one of the toughest out there right now. Hopefully one day I'll get the opportunity to share the ring with them, whether it's sparring, maybe eventually a fight. Who knows? Baby steps. But I do think it's a great division. Very challenging. And always up for a challenge.
Actually, you and Joe Smith have the same promoter, Joe DeGuardia. So Joe could always arrange for you to get a little experience and spar with Joe Smith. As long as Smith, he seems like the type of guy who would work with young fighters and not take advantage. He's a nice guy. I couldn't envision him taking a cheap shot, anything like that, which definitely, at this stage of your career, obviously you're nowhere close to being on his level. But the experience of being in with a champion certainly, it'd be a nice thing, as far as sparring goes.
Of course, he'll teach me a lot.
Have you had any conversations with him? Have you talked to him a little bit about the light heavyweight division? Have you met with him at all?
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Nice guy. We haven't sparred, but hopefully one day he'll share that experience with me.
Oh yeah, you got to get in there and spar with him, Lou. You got it.
Now, how do you train Lou? Lou, if I'm not mistaken, you're a fireman, right?
Yes.
Okay, how long have you been a fireman for?
It's going to be 2 years in November, so it's fairly new. And I was blessed to get that job, so it took me out of the gym for a year while we were in the FDNY Academy.
How do you fit your boxing training in with your, regular job?
The guys are great. They let me work my schedule around training, so it's they make it pretty easy for me.
So Lou, as far as your event coming up, who are you going up against in your debut? Who's the guy you're going up against?
We don't have a name yet.
Okay.
So the promoter Joe DeGuardia is still working on it, but hopefully we'll have an opponent within the upcoming week or so.
Is he looking to match you up against somebody with the same amount of experience? I would imagine he wants to protect you in your debut at least.
Somebody with a decent amount of experience, but we're ready to fight anybody. Somebody with the same experience would be good to get our feet wet, and the pro ranks and the amateur ranks, completely different. So hopefully we'll see though.
Why didn't you stay amateur a little longer? You didn't stay amateur too long. Why not get a little more experience? Was it the pandemic that threw things out of whack?
Yeah, the pandemic threw things out of whack a little bit, but right before the pandemic, I got called for the fire department. So then I lost a year in the academy. And then when we came out of the academy, my coach and I decided, we were going to have a couple more amateur fights. We went pro. And then the pandemic hit, and just too much time was being lost.
What kind of style would you say you're at, Lou? Are you a boxer? You're a brawler, defensive counterpuncher, or do you attack?
I'm a brawler. I like to slug. I move around the ring, but I do like to slug. I like to fight.
Lou, are you a ticket seller?
A big.
You seem like a charismatic guy. Did they turn out for you? The fellow firemen, are they going to turn out for you?
Yes.
Because the FDNY, they're involved in amateur boxing heavily, and FDNY against NYPD, FDNY against one another, different cities. They're really into it. They've always been supportive of their own. Is that going to be the case at the Paramount?
Of course. FDNY, they just put on a nice show last week, Rockaway Beach. Now they're excited.
I was there last week.
It was a good show.
Yeah, it was a good show. Great atmosphere. It was good to get things back. Kudos to Bobby McGuire, who was in charge of that show, putting it on. It was a great time, nice night.
Yeah, so they'll be there.
Excellent. So Lou, I got Lou, and did I pronounce it right? Is it Maeitta or Maeitta?
Yeah, it was close enough.
Do you have a nickname yet, Lou?
The nickname was actually given to me in the gym. I come from a big Italian family, And the nickname's in Italian. They called me Il Martello, which means the hammer.
The hammer. That's pretty cool. That's
So
pretty cool.
just get a little mad.
Wait, you gotta earn that name professionally, because one of the star boxing star attractions, Cletus Selden, that's his nickname, the Hammer. So I don't know, will he like it? But you're a bigger guy than he is, so maybe you could get away with it.
I know he deserves.
He's only a welterweight, so yeah.
But he deserves it. No, he's got some devastating knockouts. Hopefully, we add some of those to our resume.
There you go. Hey, listen, I was thinking, Lou, if you ever want to have to change your nickname, I mean, in Spanish, it's El Bombero, man. So Lou El Bombero Maeitta, I mean, that sounds pretty good.
It does.
Yeah, right? The fireman. There you go.
Well, I'm going to tell you, a lot of professional boxers have told me that it's a big adjustment from the amateurs to the pros. It's just not the same style of fighting. But based on the way you say you fight, being a brawler, I would think the adjustment would be a little easier, because it's less about scoring points for you. As an amateur, the idea is to score points in the ring, punch count and all that stuff. But in the pros, that's not the same way. So are you making any adjustments from the amateurs to the pros, or just taking a game up another level by training harder and working harder?
Yeah, of course. We turned it up a little bit. Obviously, 'cause the pro ranks are completely different, like you said. We're working more on endurance, strength. A little more punch and power behind the punches, and hopefully that adapts to our style of fighting, and allows us, to keep a hard pace throughout the whole event.
Lou, are you fighting a 4-rounder, 6-rounder?
The first fight would be 4 rounds.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. To some people, it might be just one extra round more than the amateurs, but it could be a big thing psychologically to some fighters, because the people outside the ropes don't know how it feels for the most part to be inside the ring. Is that extra round on your mind, saying, okay, I might have to go the distance, so I might have to just pace myself a little more. And once I get a 4-rounder under my belt, then I could start thinking of a 6-rounder.
Yeah, of course. We're going to be ready to go distance, whether, the ends early or we go the distance. We plan to be in great shape enough to go all 4 rounds, then eventually work our way up to 6 rounds. I think the 4 rounds is better for us to start off, just to get our feet wet in the pros a little bit. It's a lot different than the amateurs. So hopefully, after the 4, we'll go to 6.
You mentioned your family before. How supportive are they of you turning pro?
They're very supportive. They'll be there as well. We got a big turnout with the family as well, so they'll be there.
Excellent. So Lou, you say you're a brawler. Being a brawler, you gotta have a strong chin, right? Because you're gonna take a good boxer is gonna land some good punches on you. So defensively, I think of brawlers. I think, of course, Joe Smith. I think of Joe Frazier, where these guys had to take. You have to take the punches. So yes. When you're going up against a guy that's a real good boxer, is your chin going to be able to handle? I know you're going to say yes, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is your chin able to handle some of the pounding you're going to take?
Yeah, I believe so. It's been tested a few times. We work with due to my style, we work with a lot of heavyweights, taller guys who hit very hard, for me to keep my style up with them. I've been tagged a few times, and,
What's the matter with you guys? Lou, the idea is not to get hit. I don't want to hear that you can take a good pounding. That's just what you don't want to do. You don't want to get hit. Don't go along with Mac. Oh, yeah, I can take a pounding. I could show I'm tough. I could take it. You don't want that. You don't want to get hit, period.
Of course you don't want to get hit. But if you do get hit, it's good to know that you have a good confidence to take the punch.
Jack Jack's Mr. Safety, but he still covers boxing. But I'm going to tell you something. You have to take a punch to give a good punch once in a while. That's the sport that I know. You know, Frazier took a lot of hits before he landed his big one. Joe Smith's taken some big hits before he landed one. That's just part of the fight. And if you know, so you're counter punching. I mean, you're saying you're not a boxer, so you're not trying to come off anything. You're looking to strike him after he tries to throw a punch at you, or looking for that opening. Tyson was a brawler, even though he had fast hands. But still, you know, if you're that type of style, no matter what the great writer says himself, you know you're going to have to get in close, and that means you're going to open yourself up to getting tagged once in a while.
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay, are you a big puncher? You a wear him down type fighter who likes to put a lot of pressure on an opponent and just wear him down, break him down little by little? Are you a big puncher in that sense where you look for a quick ending?
I don't look for a quick ending unless I see it coming, but I do like to apply pressure, and I won't stop. I'm coming forward, applying pressure, and if I see the opportunity, I'm going to take it.
And do you have a plan B? Can you box, circle the ring if you have to? That's just not you.
So we work on that as well. You know, my coach prefers that, but my style, the way I like to fight, is boxing. So, you know, plan B, I'm sorry, my style is brawling, so B would be boxing.
Yeah. Who's your coach? Well, give him a shout out.
Aaron Davis.
Oh, the former champion, former WBA welterweight champion. Yeah, I know Aaron. Aaron won his WBA title in 1990. He knocked out Mark Breland in a great fight. And, Aaron had an outstanding career. He's in the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame, Aaron Davis. Yeah, heck of a fighter, Aaron Davis.
Great fighter. Him and his father, he coached him as well.
Yeah, Aaron Sr. Yeah, they used to be associated. Is Billy Giles still around, do you know?
He's still around, but he's not working with us.
Right. No, I remember from the old days. I go back. This is before you were born. I went back a little with those guys.
Yeah, this is Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey era of the 1920s is what he's talking about right now, Lou.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lou. So one more question for you, and it's going to be a little entailed. We have Iceman John Skelly comes on normally every Thursday with us. Great trainer. He's a great boxer, and he's been everything in boxing. And we talked to him about training a lot. You know, we talked about short burst training, strength and conditioning. He always thought that natural strength is better than built-up strength, right? When you lift weights a lot and everything, it's okay, but it's not better than a natural strength, and to be strong in your mind. So he did a lot of different things as far as quick bursts and training. In your training, are you doing heavy weights, or are you doing, are you doing more of a, I don't want to call it, exercise regimen, but something that helps you in quick bursts where when the round is close to being over or when you need to come on, that you really can come on strong?
We don't touch weights at all. We do a lot of calisthenics, a lot of body weight, put on some natural muscle, and a lot of explosiveness. Workouts where you have to explode off of it. My strength and conditioning coach, he believes that it helps everything all around: your endurance, your stamina, your natural strength, your punching power. So we do a lot of burpees, push squats, jump squats, push-ups, come down, you explode up. So we do a lot of that stuff to speed up the heart rate and build up the strength.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, like a lot of elite fighters, it seems most of them these days have a physical trainer, strength and conditioning coach. In the past, it used to be the regular trainer would oversee all the training and the workouts. But you have a strength and conditioning coach specifically for that, right?
Yes.
How does he work with Aaron Davis as far as training you? Because certain days are put aside to spar and do certain things. So obviously your boxing trainer doesn't want you to be run ragged and work too hard where you're going to be stale when you get in the ring to spar. How does that work in your case?
They work together. They coordinate the days. they have the whole plan for the week, and they'll just tell me this is the plan for the week. Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this, there's this, and so on. They coordinate pretty well. Aaron oversees all the strength and conditioning, but predominantly strength and conditioning coach. The strength and conditioning coach runs strength and conditioning.
Excellent stuff. Lou, I want to thank you for coming on. We'll be watching, see what happens with you September 4th. Who you're matched up against, how well you do. We're working with Joe and Tony over there. Definitely get updates, and hopefully you get that first victory, man, and just build upon it, dude. I mean, hey, we're behind you here. We love any new young boxers coming out that are trying to break into the business. Very tough business, very confusing business, and hopefully you got Joe there looking out for you and Tony looking out for you, and that you're successful. I really wish you well, Lou.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Good luck, Lou.
Thank you guys. I'll see you guys September 4th.
See you there. I'll be there. I'll say hello. If you win your fight, I'm coming by to say hello. If you lose, I'll come by and say hello, but you're not going to lose. You're going to win.
You're right.
Thank you, guys.
Take it easy, Lou.
Take care.
So there you go, Jack. Lou Maeitta. I think I said it right. He said it's close enough, so that's good. So interesting. I just love having boxers on the program, Jack, and I'm glad you hooked. I kind of hooked it up, but through you.
You did this, Mac. You did this. I mean, come on.
It's because of you. It's because of you originally, hooking us up with Joe DeGuardia that I went ahead and did this. So, folks, we're going to do our second and last break for today. We got Thomas Hauser coming on, guys. This guy's a great writer. He's did a biography on Muhammad Ali. We're going to cover the greatest boxer of all time. And we'll be talking about his other books, too, and writing for Ring Magazine. And maybe Jack calls him a friend. But, I think there's a little competition thing going on there. I won't get into it with him.
There's no competition. He's so far ahead of me, accomplished, Mac. It's not a competition.
Yeah, you are so humble when it comes to yourself.
It's like a special teams player, me against an elite all-star starter. Come on.
Jack,
no comparison at all. Leave it alone. Mac, that's like comparing you to Stephen A. Smith. Come on.
Right. And everybody knows. I'm not even going to go there.
Comparing you to Skip Bayless. How's that?
Okay, there you go. Folks, we're going to be right back after this, but stick around because we got a lot more boxing, a lot more sports coming for you. We'll be right back after these messages.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. It makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt That's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get us any.
Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, legendary boxing writer himself, Jack Hirsch. Jack Lou seemed like a really nice guy. I hope he does well in his debut fight, September 4th there in New York. So we wish him all the best.
You wish him well. He has a great level of enthusiasm, and you can see how excited he is about making his debut.
There's no
Big
doubt.
thing. Yeah, we wish him well.
Definitely. So, Jack, every Thursday we've been doing, since we started a new format here on Thursdays, a boxer spotlight. And you mentioned that we might have talked about him before, but it's worth another look, right? The great Ezzard Charles fought way back when. I think he was up against, wasn't he up in the time frame that Marciano was? Am I right, Jack?
Well, he fought Marciano twice for the title. He challenged Marciano, but Charles really was past his peak. He was a bit on the downside, but he still gave Marciano terrific fights both times. I mean, losing a tough 15-round decision the first time around, in which Marciano had to come on in the later rounds. And then in the second fight, he split Rocky's nose, and they were very close to stopping the fight when Marciano rallied to get Charles out of there in the 8th round. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't he fought like at 187, if I read it right, Jack, around that weight class, 180. So I guess he could have fought light heavyweight if he wanted to. He did fight light heavyweight. He never fought for the World Light Heavyweight Championship, but he did beat the great Archie Moore 4 times. And some people feel Archie Moore was the greatest light heavyweight champion, which he may have been. Charles was better than Marciano, but Charles never fought for the World Light Heavyweight title. But to many, he was the best pound-for-pound boxer of his era. Right. I'm gonna bring it up and see if I can share a video. It's a 3-minute clip, folks, just showing his defense, and he's one of the best defensive fighters of all time, they say, right up there with Mayweather, maybe second to Mayweather. So let's bring him up and see if I can do this and see if we can watch the great Ezzard Charles do his thing.
Weighing 187.5 pounds, Ezzard Charles.
What I was watching, Jack, was his great counter-punching ability and how he made a lot of people miss. Mac, I mean, Mayweather's one of the greatest defensive fighters of all time, but I wouldn't give Mayweather automatically the top spot. You had Willie Pep, you had Wilfred Benitez, you had, Pernell Whitaker. You had some real great defensive masters over the years. Mayweather's one amongst them. Charles was ultra talented,
But when he fought, when he was at his best in the 1940s, it was hard to get really high-profile fights. Eventually, he broke through. He got a shot at the heavyweight title when Joe Louis retired. He won the vacant title. Then when Joe Louis made a comeback, he tried to regain the title from Charles. Charles beat him very soundly over the 15-round distance. And then Charles made like 8 title defenses, and 2 of them were against Jersey Joe Walcott. So when he fought Walcott the 3rd time, that was a charm for Walcott. Charles walked into a punch and got knocked out. And then they had a 4th fight. And most people feel that Charles won that fight and had regained the title, but the decision went to Walcott. And then after he had the 2 fights with Marciano, in which, you know, he came somewhat close to winning both fights, but couldn't quite get it done as Rocky came on. And when Charles passed away, it was tragic. It was Lou Gehrig's disease that eventually did him in. And the Cincinnati Cobra, you know, his career took a turn for the worse when he was in his prime. Because he knocked out this fighter, Sam Baruti, and Baruti died after the fight. And a lot of people say Charles was never the same. He would never open up all out the way he did before that. He always kind of seemed to hold something a little back because he was affected by Baruti's death.
Yeah, I mean, I just watching the film of him, some bluesy music behind him. I don't know where they picked that up from. I would have picked a little bit more upbeat song.
Why don't we play that music on our show, Mac? I mean, I don't know whether it's going out of style.
You like that?
I mean, yeah, we got to, you know, mix things up a little.
Yes, I mean, I guess, but I don't know if boxing is the right thing to be showing.
Let me tell you what goes on in boxing now. You're sitting in the arena, and I like rap music, but I don't like the cursing in some of the songs.
Yes.
And you have blaring it out, these things, you know, sometimes certain things that, you know, aren't quite for me, you know, in certain songs, certain words in the song. Yeah. The songs themselves, a lot of them I like, but when you slip in a little profanity in there, you know, that's not quite for me.
I hear you. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if a little blues behind somebody getting the hell knocked out of him is what you want to hear. But that's okay. I mean, it was classy. But what I saw in that video, Jack, was Ezzard Charles making people actually miss with 1-2 combinations and putting up the old cross hands across his face and just going to the body and digging and coming back up. I mean, a great boxer.
There was the late Lou Eskin, who was the editor of Boxing Illustrated magazine. He actually refereed even when Ali's fights. You know, long-term boxing man, like, you know, hard-nosed, like hardcore, not always the most flexible guy. He always used to say that Muhammad Ali was the greatest heavyweight of all time. And this is when Ali was fighting, and most people overwhelmingly thought Joe Louis was the greatest. He stuck with Muhammad Ali. But he'd always say, but the greatest fighter he ever saw, pound for pound, was Ezzard Charles.
And from that video we saw, I don't know if I disagree with him. I mean, my dad talked about him a great deal as I was growing up. And to finally watch him do his thing on video was amazing. Backstage, Jack, we have a special guest, Thomas Hauser, writer, author. He's inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Wrote a great biography on Muhammad Ali. Let's bring him up and talk to him. How you doing, Tom? Thank you for joining us.
I'm okay. Nice to see you. Forgive me for not being more elaborately dressed, but I see I'm in good company here.
I thought I'm sharp today.
Right with the jab, Jack. I love it. Right off the rip. Thomas, that's excellent. Hey, Thomas, so Jack hooked me up with you. You're both writers, and of course, you've been an author for years. I think your first book coming out was in 1976, and if I got my notes right, I mean it was the execution of Charles Norman in 1976.
1978, the execution of Charles Horman,
Okay.
which was then made into the feature film Missing, directed by Costa Gavras and starring Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek. So that was the beginning of a transition for me from being a lawyer on Wall Street to becoming a writer. And then somewhere along the line, I became a boxing writer.
And you've written other books as well on Mark Twain, on Arnold Palmer too, you know, an iconic sports personality. And what number we up to, Tom? I'm going to guess, trivia question, we up to 48?
To be honest with you, I don't count. And the reason I say that is that some of the books, if you count every individual title, we're into the low 50s, but some of those are reissued. For example, years ago, I wrote a book called The Lost Legacy of Muhammad Ali, which was everything I wrote about Ali after the big biography. Then when Muhammad died, I updated The Lost Legacy of Muhammad Ali under the title Muhammad Ali, A Tribute to the Greatest. So I would count that Lost Legacy and Tribute as one book. And then a number of the books are collections of boxing articles. I have a contract with the University of Arkansas Press, and each year they bring out a book with everything I wrote about boxing the year before. And so those are collections of articles rather than separate books, but certainly they count as anthologies.
So you also wrote, Thomas, you also wrote for Ring Magazine and New York Times. What's the biggest difference? I mean, I understand Ring Magazine is maybe a feature story, or maybe you're reporting on something, and as an author, you want to tell a story and have them captivated for a longer amount of time. Which one did you enjoy better? Did you enjoy more writing for Ring Magazine or telling a story about something?
Well, let me go back a step on that first and say that I'm very often asked by young writers, beginning writers, if I have any advice for them about writing boxing. And I always say three things. Number one, if there's free food, grab it. Number two, fighters can be some of the most wonderful, smart, warm, giving, just special people in the world. But remember, you got to be a little nuts to be a fighter. Sure. And number three, and this goes directly to the heart of your question, you write every article as though you're writing it for the New York Times or some other major publication. Because, and Jack knows this, because, Jack, you've been around the block to all these different publications. Everything you write becomes part of your creative legacy. And it becomes something that people judge you by, that you judge yourself by, and history judges you by. I think it was Jack Nicholson who said there are no small parts, only small actors. And the same thing is true of writing. Now, having said that, I think the bigger difference is between writing for the internet and writing for print publications. Because if you write for print publication, you're generally given a word limit. You're told, we want 500 words or 1,500 words or whatever. Whereas cyberspace is infinite. So if I'm writing online, whether it's for Boxing Scene or Ring Online or one of any number of different outlets, I can write as long as I want. And that's important to me because some of the things I've written, particularly investigative reports, are quite lengthy. So that's really the big difference. Look, is it nice to have something you've written in the New Yorker or the New York Times? Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. More people see it, it gets more visibility. But as a creative artist, which writers are, the important thing is to write what I want to write, to get it nicely published. And then each year, as I mentioned earlier, the University of Arkansas Press brings out this book, which means it's there forever. My writing isn't going to just disappear because a server someplace went down.
Well, in recent years, you've specialized in writing dressing room reports. And I remember you commented, how nice it would have been had we known what went on in Joe Louis's dressing room before he fought Max Schmeling, had there been a record of it. Tell us about, the dressing room reports, which you really are invaluable, very extremely enlightening, and people love reading about it.
Well, I seem to have carved out a niche for myself where fighters will allow me in the dressing room in the crucial hours before and after a fight to write that for history. And as you said, I ask myself sometimes, what would it mean for history if somebody had been in Joe Louis's dressing room or Jack Johnson's dressing room before he fought James Jeffries or many of these? And I've done that with fighters large and small. At one end of the spectrum, I've been in Manny Pacquiao's dressing room before and after 4 of his biggest fights. Roy Jones on 6 occasions, peaking when he beat John Ruiz to win the heavyweight title. Manny Pacquiao 4 times before he fought Miguel Cotto, Ricky Hatton, 2 fights in Dallas. But I've also done it with club fighters. One of the most intriguing articles for me was when Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya fought. I tracked the 2 fighters who were in the opening bout that day. The article was entitled "First Fight at 3:05 p.m." And I interviewed them both the day before the fight. The day of the fight, I ran back and forth between their dressing rooms. And these were 2 professional fighters on the biggest stage in boxing, one of the biggest fights in boxing history. And when their fight started, the doors to the arena were literally closed to the public. And when their fight ended, there were 12 paying spectators in the stands. So it's a privilege to be in the dressing room with fighters before they go out for an event. And everybody understands when they return to the dressing room, their lives aren't going to be the same. Economically, their circumstances will have changed based on whether they won or lost. And physically, which is the scary part, they might not be the same either.
Yeah, that's awesome. You were mentioned investigative writing. You were 8 times named by the Boxers Writers Association of America of the best investigative writing of the year. I know you've written fiction. You've written you've written some biographies. Investigative writing, Thomas, is there something different you're doing? Are you getting deeper into a subject and checking out all sources? What's the difference between that and just regular writing an article or something?
Okay, well, first, there's a confusion in some circles on the difference between investigative writing and research. In other words, I can research an in-depth story about Jack Dempsey or Jack Johnson, go deep into the past, but that's not investigative writing. Investigative writing is looking beneath the surface to uncover, usually a problem. Usually something has gone wrong. Usually something isn't being done properly. The facts are being hidden from view or often intentionally, and you have to investigate it, not research it, investigate it. There's a difference. And here I'm helped, I believe, by the fact that I'm a lawyer. I spent 5 years as a litigator on Wall Street. To a degree, I understand finance, the arcane parts of contracts and the like, how government agencies work. So that's an edge. It's also a big part of that is building up contacts, knowing that even if, for example, if people at the New York State Athletic Commission or in the old days, HBO or some other entity, even if the people at the top of the pyramid don't want to talk to me and instruct their people not to talk to me, there are people who I've gotten to know over the years who trust me, know that I'll handle a subject honestly, and they're forthright with me.
Very cool. Very cool. The boxing Olympics, and we're going to get to Muhammad Ali probably right after this. The Olympics, following boxing the way I do, and of course I'm with Jack, who's a great writer in his own right, and now we got you on. boxing has changed a lot over the years, of course, Thomas. You know, all the different classes, all the different sanctioning bodies. We really don't know who the champion is sometimes and who the contenders are. And even the Olympics have taken a big hit. I mean, I remember growing up watching, fighting the Cubans and the Russians and the great fighters that came out of there, the Sugar Ray Leonards and the Spinks brothers. And we kind of grew up with them. You know, as they progressed through professional, they were kind of spotlighted. And today that's kind of missed by everybody. We don't know who the boxing team is in a lot of circumstances. And it seems like the boxing kind of lost its roots a lot from what it used to be. It kind of hurts their popularity to the not the diehard boxing fan who's really into it, where everybody knew, who the top 4 contenders were for the heavyweight title at one time.
Well, you've touched on a range of issues there. First, in terms of Olympic boxing, the last American man to win a gold medal at the Olympics was Andre Ward. And that was, 2004? It was a long time ago. And that's a function of 2 things. Number one, amateur boxing in the United States has deteriorated to a great degree. It's really gotten very poor. And second, the rest of the world has improved. It used to be that there were only a couple of teams, a couple of countries that sent good fighters to the Olympics. And now many countries are doing that, so the competition is tougher. And amateur boxing in general in the United States doesn't what it used to have. And I'll be honest with you, I'm bored by amateur boxing. It's not a very good product. It's not entertaining. And the focus has moved away from that. Sure, if you come out of the Olympics with a gold medal, that's a great marketing tool. But a lot of fighters, particularly if they're good, don't want to go through that whole nonsense of qualifying and staying in the amateurs and going through everything you have to do, and then maybe not making the Olympic team, or maybe you get to the Olympics and you don't win, or you win and the decision's stolen from you. And there are so many promoters out there now who are willing to offer that we're not even sending our best amateurs to the Olympic Games.
Tom, riders like to have a legacy as well. You've accomplished so much in your career, an amazing amount. You have a number of things that could pass for legacy. One of them is coming up in June, by the way. Congratulations, and you're going to be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. That's the highest honor anyone can have in the sport. But even after that happens, your legacy is probably going to be Muhammad Ali's biographer. Is that a legacy you would prefer, that you like? What would you want your legacy to be in the sport?
Well, first, I look at it in a somewhat broader view, and I look at it in terms of my legacy as a writer. And that began with the execution of Charles Horman, which then became the movie Missing, and that's certainly a footnote in history. Missing was the first overtly political American film that was ever made. Before that, you had All the President's Men, but by the time that came out, Richard Nixon had resigned from office. Watergate was a done deal. Missing, and people tend to forget this now, it was a long time ago, was on the front page of newspapers throughout the country, and it had an impact on and was a contributing factor to the downfall of the Pinochet regime in Chile, which was a brutal fascist regime. I would use those words lightly. So it starts with Missing. Over the years, I've written 12 novels, nonfiction books. 12 novels, fiction books. I've written a philosophy on moral values. In terms of boxing, I would say there are several components to my legacy, and they're all important to me. As you said, there's the Ali book, which, when I depart this planet, I hope it's not for a long time. I'm sure to the extent that there are obituaries, Muhammad Ali's biographer will be in the first paragraph of them. But it starts with The Black Lights, which was my first serious boxing writing, which laid out, the way the sport and business work. There's obviously the MLB book. There are two other components to my boxing writing I'm quite proud of. One is that I have written two novels about boxing, fiction books. One is Mark Twain Remembers, which is a book about Mark Twain, slavery, and boxing. The other is a novel, a novella really, a short book about the contemporary boxing scene called Waiting for Carver Boyd. And both of those books are important to me. It might be, in my view, the most important writing I've done in boxing are the columns that I've written for the past 20 years or so. For 20 years, these are the articles that are collected in the annuals brought out by the University of Arkansas Press. For 20 years, I've chronicled the contemporary boxing scene in depth, not on a fight by fight basis. If you want to find out, what happened when Sean Porter fought somebody, no, that's a big fight. No, that's and that's not a knock on Sean Porter, by the way. I mean, but what I've done is I have tried to cover at one time or another every aspect of the contemporary boxing scene, from in-depth fight reports to looks at HBO and New York State Athletic Commission to historical pieces. This is how boxing really works. It's funny, when I finished writing The Black Light in 1985, I said to myself, wow, I'm an expert on boxing. I wasn't. When I finished writing The Black Light, I was an informed fan. The only way you really get to know boxing, the sport and the business, is to be in the trenches year after year after year after year. And you go to fights, you go to press conferences, you watch, you learn, you talk to people, you develop relationships with people like Bruce Trampler and Ron Katz, Eric Botcher, people who really are part of the business, understand the business, know the business, and over time you develop a certain expertise in the sport. But it's a many, many layered sport business.
No, I was fascinated by something it said. You wrote a book on Arnold Palmer, and you wrote down you were in a restaurant and you saw Arnold there, and you played the fly on the wall. He hadn't, he didn't know you were there, and you just wanted to listen in to see how he was. Tell us how it was very briefly with Arnold Palmer.
That was at the start of my relationship with Arnold. After the Ali book, I was approached by a lot of sports figures and their representatives, write my story. But once you've done Muhammad Ali, there's really there's not much rivals that. But then I was approached by IMG, which represented Arnold Palmer, and they asked if I'd be interested in working on a book about Arnold on the same basis that I did it with Ali. And that appealed to me because Arnold was important. He was a great, great golfer. He was really thought of as every man. He appealed to people across the board, from blue-collar workers to boardroom executives. But most important, in some respects, Arnold and Mark McCormick redefined the economics of sports. People don't understand that today. And when Arnold Palmer started, if an athlete did a shoe commercial, he got $500 and a dozen pairs of shoes. And Mark McCormick got the idea we can sell Arnold to major corporations as a way of building their brand. And for 30 consecutive years, literally 30 years, Arnold was the top grossing athlete in the world in terms of endorsement income. Finally, I think it was around 1990, Michael Jordan surpassed him. So that was the staying power of Arnold Palmer. And once we signed our contract and everything, I went down to Bay Hill. Well, let me rephrase that. I went down to Bay Hill in Orlando. He was living half the year in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, where he grew up, and half the year in Bay Hill in Orlando, which is a golf course and club down there. And we had arranged for me to meet with him for the first time on a Monday, or I think it was a Monday morning, whatever it was, at 9 o'clock. So I got in the night before, and I went into the clubhouse to have dinner. And by chance, I was seated at the table next to Arnold, his wife Winnie, and another couple they were having dinner with. And I thought of going over and introducing myself. And then I said, no, just let him be, leave him alone. I didn't want him to feel compelled to ask me to join them. And so I just sat there and ate my dinner and listened to the conversation. And what struck me and what you're alluding to is that the next day I got together with Arnold. And each night I was down in Bay Hill. I had dinner with Arnold and Winnie. And he was the same. I mean, Arnold Palmer, when he was with two friends, and his wife having dinner, was the same during that meal and at the conversation as he was when he was sitting with me. And I realized that with Arnold Palmer, what you see, you get. And he was important. I cannot imagine Arnold being rude to a fan or a busboy or a waiter. He was like Ali in that regard.
Sports-wise, what was a more competitive rivalry as far as passion went of the competitors? Arnold and Jack Nicklaus, or Ali and Joe Frazier?
There was probably more passion in Ali Frazier, but if you look at Ali and Frazier fought 3 fights that are the pyramids of boxing. But that rivalry took place, the first fight was 1971, so it took place over the course of 4 years? Arnold and Jack competed with each other over the course of probably 25 years at an elite level, and it was tournament after tournament after tournament. So yeah, you can look at Ali Frazier, you want to go to horse racing, you have affirmed an Ali Dar in those 3 great Triple Crown races. But Palmer and Nicklaus was as great as any rivalry there ever was.
How did it feel, Thomas, when you're talking to Muhammad Ali? I know you're covered him in an autobiography. When you're talking with him, I don't know if you were talking with Dundee or the people around him at camp. I imagine you had interaction with him. Was Ali as smart as people say he was as far as the promotion aspect of boxing? I mean, you had we've interviewed great promoters on the show, but to me, Muhammad Ali wasn't just a fighter, and he wasn't just a civil rights a leader in a lot of aspects, but he was also a great promoter of boxing itself. The antics he did, he drew attention to not only himself, but boxing at the time he was at his height, especially when you're talking Frazier and Foreman and that. But even earlier, he seemed like he had a smartness for the business, not just as a boxer.
Okay, first, there are different kinds of intelligence. I think, social scientists have broken it down into 7 different kinds of intelligence in different areas. I think I'm very smart in some areas. On the other hand, I have no aptitude for foreign languages, which is also a form of intelligence. I mean, even when I was young, I think it would have been virtually impossible for me to learn a foreign language. I just didn't have that skill. I don't have the, call it intelligence, aptitude, or whatever, to learn to play a musical instrument. That just isn't in me. Now, in terms of Ali, in what we think of as conventional terms, an standard IQ test, Ali wasn't very smart. Let's be honest about it. He graduated 376th out of a class of 391 at a not very good high school in Louisville, Kentucky. His IQ, from the time he took his first Army intelligence test through being tested at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital when he started having physical problems, was constantly in the mid-80s, which is a very, very low number. When Ali took the Army intelligence test, a sample question might be, there is a stack with 12 apples in it. the sack costs $1.20. How much does each apple cost? Ali would not have known how to go about solving that problem, dividing 12 into 120. I don't think he would have been able to negotiate a lease for an apartment, certainly wouldn't have understood all the terms. So in those ways, he wasn't very smart. He was a genius when it came to spatial reasoning. In other words, being in a boxing ring, knowing precisely how long it would take to throw a particular punch at what angle. He was a genius at interpersonal relationships. And he had an instinctive understanding of a certain kind of promotion. He was made for television, and television was made for Ali. You would have had a totally different phenomenon without television. But he had that instinctive genius when it came to knowing how to self-promote, how to get along with people. I mean, when you actually came face to face with Ali, I think it was Lloyd Wells who said, even the people who didn't like Ali liked Ali. I mean, I don't care what you thought of that man. If you came face to face with him, and you saw that smile and that aura of love that emanated from him. And even during the Nation of Islam days when there was a lot of anger, I mean, there was just something incredibly charismatic, likable, lovable about him. And so that was part of his genius, but it wasn't a conventional genius. Every now and then I'll read something where somebody says, oh, Ali was a very sophisticated businessman. No. Ali didn't have a clue about conventional business. He was what he was, and he was unique. I remember sitting once with Lonnie Ali. We were going over the copy for something, and it said, Muhammad is 1 in a million. And I said to Lonnie, no, if Muhammad was 1 in a million, it would mean that there were 350 of them in the United States. And Muhammad is unique. He is sui generis. I mean, there never was and never will be another person just like him.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Jack, you got any more? Because we're getting ready to go here in a minute.
No, but it's pretty good. We mentioned before about Tom, you being inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. We know you have to be pretty excited about that. What exactly does that mean to you? I mean, because it is the highest honor you could possibly be given in the sport.
I was very moved by it. I had not expected that it would come. This was the first time that I was on the ballot. And, there's always a feeling that people have big publicity machines behind them, or they're in a position where they can buy $50,000 sponsorships or whatever else, but the votes come in and the hall counts them. And I was very moved, and I'm very grateful to all the people who put a check mark next to my name on the ballot. And as time goes by, it means even more to me now than it did before. It's very special, although I say to people, the hall is really for, immortals like, Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali. And if I'm in it, it's as a tour guide.
Well, no one would know who they were if people didn't write about them. Keep that in mind.
Very, very true. Thomas, congratulations. Great interview, a lot of insight, not just into boxing and Ali, but a lot of things. And we were glad that you came on, and we wish you a great day. And again, congratulations, my friend.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye.
Take it easy. So there you go, folks. Thomas Hauser going to be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. High honor, and a great author and a great writer, Jack. And
we covered a little golf too. No one could complain. We never covered golf. We touched
and that will probably be the only time on the Mac and Jack show you hear us covering golf. But anyway, Jack, great get. Folks, thank you for tuning in again tomorrow. Great show coming up Saturday. We have our debate show. And Sunday, we have our This Week in Sports that will be later turned into the big football show. All great guests, including two-time Super Bowl Jim Jeffco, who joins us on Sundays. You guys have a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. right here on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and every other audio and video outlet you can imagine. Thanks for joining us, and have a great Thursday, folks.